Hi, I'm Azra. My dad barked, "Shut up, you're not buying a Porsche," right after he drained every dollar I saved. 3 years of work, gone. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was realizing they'd planned it all along. They used my name to buy my sister the very car I built my life around. They called it a gift. I called it a theft. And that was just the beginning. What kind of family makes you invisible while pretending you're ungrateful? End of hook. You know that moment when your heart skips just a little, checking your bank balance? Maybe you're waiting for a paycheck to clear or hoping a big purchase went through without a hiccup. Mine wasn't one of those moments. Mine felt like my chest caved in. I had just gotten off the phone with the dealership that morning. A 2024 Porsche 911 Carrera S, black with the performance package, had come in earlier than expected. The salesman was nice enough to give me a heads up before calling anyone else. "It's exactly your build, Azra," he said. "If you can drop the deposit today, it's yours." My fingers shook as I opened my banking app. I had been saving for nearly 4 years. Every bonus, every freelance check, every Christmas gift envelope, it all went into that account. That money wasn't just for a car. It was proof that I could set a goal and meet it. When the screen loaded, I felt like I'd been punched through my stomach. $26 on 17s. I refreshed the screen twice. Logged out, logged in again. Still $26 and 17s. Maybe it's a technical error, I told myself aloud, because saying it might make it more real. I even grabbed my laptop and pulled up the browser version, hoping the mobile app was glitching. Same number, same heartbreak. I sat there, not blinking. My phone buzzed. It was the dealership again. I silenced it. I wasn't about to talk to anyone until I knew what the hell just happened. I called the bank. The representative, Janet, was polite in the robotic way people are trained to be when they're about to deliver awful news. She walked through the last few transactions with me. 3 large withdrawals over the past month, each over $19,000. They were authorized by a joint account holder, she said. Your mother's name is listed here. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just listened. Janet said something else, but I wasn't really present for it. A fog had descended around my head. My mouth was dry, but my palms were damp. I ended the call, placed the phone on my desk like it might burn me, and just stared into space. A joint account. Right. 3 years ago, Mom suggested I add her name just in case. Emergencies only, she'd said. Better interest rates, she'd said. And I, foolish, trusting, loyal, had agreed. Of course, Mom, I trust you. I had said those words out loud, because back then, I thought family betrayal was something that happened to other people. People who didn't know better. People in tragic court cases or viral Reddit stories. Not me. Not us. That afternoon, I got a call from Lucas, my old financial mentor from my internship days. We'd kept in touch sporadically. He used to say I had the backbone of a CFO. I hadn't spoken to him in months. "Azra," he said, "are you changing investment strategies? I saw a couple of odd entries under your name this week." I frowned. "What entries?" "Looks like someone redirected some assets out of a holding account. Also, 2 sub-accounts opened in your name, neither of them showing you as primary." "What?" My voice cracked, sharp and dry. Lucas hesitated. "Listen, this doesn't smell right. If someone's moving funds and opening accounts without your full knowledge, we're looking at conversion, maybe even trustee override. It's not just bad manners, it's illegal." He paused again. "Do you need help?" I said I'd call him back. I didn't, not yet. I needed to sit with the weight of what was unfolding. Later that night, after Roscoe curled beside me on the garage floor, I took down the sheet I'd taped to the wall years ago, a printout of the Porsche build I'd configured on the manufacturer's site. The black coupe, red brakes, sport exhaust. Underneath, I had written in Sharpie, "Earned, not gifted." The paper was faded at the edges, slightly curled, but still whole. I pressed it against my chest like it might shield me from the disappointment crashing into my ribcage. I had planned every detail, insurance, licensing, even garage space for detailing on Sundays. It was going to be the first thing in my life that was entirely, undeniably mine. And now, it wasn't. I checked the dealership's site again. The car was listed, available, for now. I called. The same salesman picked up. "Hey, it's Azra Whitcomb. That Carrera S... Is it still..." He paused. "Ah, it was just claimed 10 minutes ago. Sorry." My mouth stayed open for a moment, but no sound came. "I see," I managed. "We'll let you know when the next one comes in. Could be a few months." "Sure." I hung up. I didn't remember walking into the garage, but there I was, on the floor beside Roscoe again, legs crossed, back against the cold concrete wall. I whispered, not to him, not even to myself, but just out loud to the silence around me. All these years, traded for what? That's when I heard my father yell from the living room, "Shut up! You're not buying a Porsche!" His voice came crashing through the walls like a freight train. "Shut up! You're not buying a Porsche!" Just like that. No hesitation, no build-up, just fury wrapped in authority. I stood in the garage, knees stiff, jaw clenched. Roscoe lifted his head at the sound, but didn't move. Neither did I, not for several long seconds. My father's voice always had a way of rooting me in place, like concrete setting too fast. But this time, I moved. Slowly, deliberately, I pushed off the wall and walked back inside. They were exactly where I knew they'd be. Dorian sat in his recliner, looking smug and self-important, like he just delivered a verdict no one could contest. Brin was curled up on the couch with her phone in hand, thumbing through something, half smirking. Mom, Evelyn, sat silently in the corner. Her hands were clasped together so tight, her knuckles were white, but she didn't say a word. I stayed standing, not daring to sit in a house that no longer felt like mine. "You emptied my account," I said, voice low but steady. Dad didn't even flinch. "You lived under my roof. That money was never just yours." It took everything in me not to scream. The words were a full-body insult, like my years of saving, planning, denying myself the smallest pleasures didn't mean a damn thing. "No," I replied. "I earned that money. Every cent. You didn't touch a single rooftop in the Arizona heat. You didn't give up weekends, cancel birthdays, or cook on hot plates to save a few bucks." He leaned forward like he was about to lecture me. "We gave you the chance to save. That's what parents do." Brin didn't even look up. "Maybe now you'll stop obsessing over material things," she mumbled, with the kind of condescension only someone who's never had to work for anything can deliver. I looked at Mom, waiting for her to say something, anything. But she kept her eyes on the floor, like it might offer a better view than the mess they created. I walked out. Not because I was finished, but because I wasn't about to lose my mind in front of people who clearly lost theirs long ago. Back in my room, I grabbed my phone and opened Instagram. Habit, muscle memory. I wasn't even thinking. But what I saw flipped something in me. There it was. A photo of the Porsche. My Porsche. Parked in our driveway. The caption read, "So blessed. Dad, you always believed in me, such grateful. My first Porsche." The image didn't hurt nearly as much as the comments. Aunt Liz with 10 heart emojis. Uncle Rick saying, "Well deserved, Brin. Your parents raised a star." A cousin chimed in, "That car fits you. Total boss move." I stared at the screen like it had slapped me. Not a single mention of me, not even a hint that the person who broke her back for that car had existed. For a second, I wasn't even angry. I was just erased. And in that erasure, I saw it all clearly. These people didn't just ignore my sacrifice. They claimed it, rewrote it, packaged it in a bow for the golden child to parade around like she manifested it through charm and hashtags. I stood up, walked straight back to the living room, and didn't wait for an invitation to speak. "You stole from me," I said, barely containing myself. "You didn't just take my money. You twisted it into something you could gift to her and pretend like I never existed." Dorian scoffed. "You're being dramatic." Brin laughed under her breath. "You're embarrassing yourself." I reached down, grabbed her phone off the couch, and deleted the post with 2 taps. "You're out of line," Dad barked. I turned to him. "You don't get to tell me what's mine. Not anymore." He rose from his chair like he might do something about it, but he didn't. Maybe he knew better. Maybe he saw something in me he hadn't expected. I didn't care which. I was done waiting for validation. Back in my room, I shut the door behind me. My legs finally gave out, and I sat on the edge of the bed. It wasn't sadness that sank in. It was the physical weight of clarity. Betrayal has a taste, a sound, a temperature. That night, it tasted like metal, sounded like denial, and felt like ice sitting in my gut. That was the night I stopped being their daughter and started being their reckoning. That was the night my family officially became strangers. I didn't sleep. Instead, I began writing down every detail I had ignored for years. I didn't sleep. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I lay on top of the covers with my clothes still on, the light from my phone screen the only thing cutting through the dark. At some point, I reached for a notepad, old, spiral-bound, the kind that had little pieces of fuzz at the edge where the pages were torn out. I started writing. Not about what happened that day, but everything that led to it. Every time Dorian said, "You wouldn't be here without our sacrifices," and I laughed like it was a joke, not a warning. Every time he reminded me, "That roof over your head isn't free," as if shelter was something I should have been paying rent for since puberty. Every time Evelyn changed the subject when I tried to talk about boundaries. I had been living under a quiet tax my whole life, emotional interest compounding over the years. I just hadn't realized I'd been paying a debt I never agreed to owe. When the sun began filtering through the blinds, I gave up on trying to sleep and headed downstairs. He was already there. Dorian sat at the kitchen table like a king on a throne he built out of guilt and entitlement. I didn't say anything. Evelyn stood at the counter and poured me a cup of coffee without a word. No eye contact, just an automatic gesture. Brin was gone. Probably yoga or brunch, or whatever people who feel no shame do on weekday mornings. Dorian didn't look up from his newspaper, but he spoke. Loud enough, intentionally. Funny how the ones who contribute the least always make the most noise. I didn't answer, didn't flinch, but something in me shifted. I took the coffee to my room and sat on the floor like I used to when I studied late at night. Legs crossed, pen in hand, silence thick around me. And then the memories came. Not all at once, but like drops from a leaking faucet. Age 9. I built a model car from scratch. Took me 2 weekends and a dozen YouTube videos. Brin knocked it off my shelf while showing off to her friend. Pieces scattered like bones. I cried. Dorian laughed. "Well, she was just playing. You should have watched it better." Age 15. The washing machine broke. I stayed up until midnight, following online tutorials, and fixed it with a bent spoon and a zip tie. Evelyn didn't say a word. Next morning, Brin cleaned the kitchen and was rewarded with a kiss on the cheek and a trip to the mall. Age 22. I offered to cover groceries because I had a freelance check come in. Dorian waved me off. "We're not taking your pity money." It wasn't the big betrayals that broke me. It was the little slights, tiny erasures, micro-abandonments that built the staircase to this moment. By the time the coffee was cold, I stood up and walked over to my closet. I pulled down a black binder labeled Porsche, June 2024. Inside were spreadsheets, every paycheck accounted for, budget breakdowns, screenshots from the dealership, my email correspondence with the manager confirming specs and dates. It wasn't just a plan, it was proof. Proof that I existed, that I worked, that I mattered. I flipped to a sticky note I'd written 8 months ago and forgot about. "This is how I know I'm real. Every dollar here is proof." I didn't cry. Not then. I was past that. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, "Joint account legal rights Arizona. Asset misappropriation by parent. Financial abuse adult children. My hands shook, but I didn't stop. They thought they could take what I built because they were family, because the law wouldn't look at them and see criminals, just parents. But the thing about erasing someone is that sometimes they come back with a highlighter. It wasn't just about the car anymore. That was the morning I realized, if I wanted peace, I had to fight for it first. Dinner was already on the stove when I walked into the kitchen. I wanted it that way. No one could accuse me of making a scene out of nothing. I stirred the pot of chili, kept my eyes on the simmering bubbles, and timed my words the same way I timed the salt. They all sat where they usually did. Dorian in his chair, like it came with a crown. Evelyn folding napkins with robotic precision. Brin was late, but that was her usual trick. Show up halfway into a conversation and make it all about her. When everyone had a bowl in front of them, I put my spoon down and said calmly, "I've consulted a lawyer, and I'm reviewing my financial options." Evelyn's hands paused, but she didn't speak. Dorian didn't even bother to look up. His laugh was low, dry. "You're bluffing," he said, reaching for the cornbread. Brin walked in just in time to hear that part. "What's going on?" she asked, sliding into her seat with her usual air of breezy oblivion. I kept my gaze on Dorian. "You think I won't burn the bridge I built alone?" He looked up at that. For a second, I saw it register in his eyes. The shift, the control slipping. Then he blinked and it was gone. Later that night, after the kitchen was cleaned and the house settled into its usual hum, I made the mistake of checking Instagram. There she was, Brin, holding the Porsche keys with a flute of champagne, like she'd just rung the opening bell at the stock exchange. Caption: "There's always a reward when you trust the right people." Evelyn had liked it, of course. I found the post while revisiting an old bookmark, my dream car saved months ago. Now it was buried under a glossy filter and smug approval. It didn't stop there. As I stared at the post, a notification popped up, a direct message. From Brin. "I'm sorry if you're hurt, but you were never really built for a car like that. No shade." I didn't respond. I didn't even blink. Then, 2 seconds later, another message came through. A video. Her and 2 friends at some brunch spot. Laughter, clinking glasses. Then a voice. Hers. Unmistakably clear. At least she finally shut up about that damn car. The video wasn't for me. She sent it by accident. That alone was enough to make my stomach turn. But what really did it? The thing that cinched the knot in my chest was how natural it sounded. Like mocking me was just part of her daily rhythm. I didn't delete it. I downloaded it. That night, I created a folder on my laptop. Exhibit A, Theft by Family. Inside it went every screenshot, every bank statement, every message. I made duplicates, uploaded them to cloud storage, encrypted a flash drive. If they were going to gaslight me, I was going to bring receipts. The next evening, I cooked again. Nothing fancy, just enough to bring everyone to the table. I waited until the second bite before speaking. "If I don't see my money returned by Friday," I said, eyes on Dorian, "I'm going to court." The room went still. Dorian set down his fork like he was placing a chess piece. "Try that," he said, "and you're out of this house." I nodded. "Then I'll pack tonight." But I didn't pack. I documented every item I owned and waited for them to make the next move. Friday morning arrived colder than usual. The air felt thin, like it knew something was coming. I got dressed with purpose, no makeup, pulled my hair back, and wore the most neutral, emotionless face I could manage. I needed to look like someone who didn't flinch. The credit union was quiet when I walked in. Just 2 tellers and a manager sipping lukewarm coffee. I approached the counter and asked to speak with someone about account activity. When the banker, Kelly, according to her name tag, asked what I needed, I didn't dance around it. "I'd like printed copies of every withdrawal made from my savings account in the last 90 days, and I want signatures attached to each one." Her expression twitched. A brief flicker of discomfort passed through her eyes, before she stood up and said, "Give me a moment." 10 minutes later, she returned with a slim folder. I sat down at her desk and flipped through it. 3 transactions, each large enough to make my stomach churn. But it wasn't the dollar amounts that hit me hardest. It was the shaky, looped signature that was supposed to be mine. It wasn't my writing. It was a bad imitation. The kind of signature you forge on a birthday card when you're too lazy to walk across the room and ask for it. Kelly cleared her throat gently. "I'm not supposed to comment, but we've seen this happen before. Family disputes can get complicated. Just document everything, okay?" I nodded. My voice wouldn't have worked anyway. As I left the bank, I pulled out my phone and made the call I'd been avoiding. "Legal aid, this is Maria speaking. I need to consult someone about unauthorized withdrawals from a joint account. There's a forged signature involved." By late afternoon, I was sitting across from a paralegal in a tiny office that smelled like dry paper and stale coffee. "You did give them joint access," she said after reviewing the documents. "So technically, they had the right to move money. But this," she tapped the forged signature, "this is something else. This is forgery." She leaned back, looking at me with something that felt like pity dressed up as professionalism. "I'll be honest with you. As a young, unmarried woman suing her parents, judges tend to lean toward reconciliation. They don't like tearing families apart." "So justice depends on appearances," I said quietly. "Not facts." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. That night, I went back through every bank statement, every screenshot I'd saved. The folder I'd started days ago became a full-blown archive. I renamed it Chronology of Theft. Each withdrawal was paired with a date, a family event, a conversation, proof that while they were smiling in photos, they were draining me dry. I pinned the forged signature to the refrigerator door, using a magnet from Brin's trip to Cabo. Petty? Maybe, but I wanted them to see it every time they reached for milk. At dinner, I didn't wait for anyone to ask how my day was. I pointed to the paper. "There's your receipt, proof you stole from me." Dorian barely looked up from his plate. "We didn't steal anything. That's called family management. Maybe if you weren't so emotionally unstable, you'd understand how money works." Brin didn't miss a beat. "Seriously, Azra, you're acting like someone who needs help." I stared at them both. "Tell it to the court." No one spoke after that. The air in the room felt heavier than the stew Evelyn had ladled out without saying a word. That weekend, I took action. I opened a new bank account under my name alone and started transferring what little money I had left. I bought a burner phone with cash, one I could use for legal matters without them tracking or intercepting anything. On Monday, I met with another attorney, Victor Reynolds. He didn't flinch when I laid out the documents. He didn't pat me on the head or suggest family therapy. He asked smart questions and didn't smile once. That was how I knew he was serious. "The system isn't built for people like you to win," he said, "so we work around the system. We use what we can prove, not what we feel." As I left his office, I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't walk back from. I didn't just light the bridge behind me. I was ready to let it burn from both ends. And they thought I'd never actually walk away, until I did. By Saturday morning, my name had quietly vanished from the extended family group chat. One minute I was there, the next, gone. No explanation, no alert, just gone, like they were scrubbing me off the family tree. About an hour later, my cousin Jenna texted, "Hey, just a heads up. Your dad's telling everyone you're having a breakdown. They're planning a Zoom tonight, without you. Something about protecting the family name?" She added, "I don't agree with it, but you didn't hear it from me." I stared at the screen. There it was, clear as daylight. The strategy. If they couldn't shut me up, they'd shut me out. Frame me as unstable. The overreacting daughter. The one who lost it over a car. Later that afternoon, I overheard Dorian on the phone in the den. He didn't bother closing the door. "She's twisting things," he said. "You know how dramatic Azra gets. This isn't legal. It's emotional. He paused, then chuckled. We're just trying to keep the family from falling apart. I stepped outside. I didn't want to hear more. I knew what would come next. The church ladies who once patted my head and called me hardworking now tilted their heads when I passed in the grocery aisle. I'd become a cautionary tale. The girl suing her parents. By the time I got to my favorite coffee shop, I felt the difference in the air. Carla, the barista who once greeted me by name, didn't even make eye contact. She slid the cup across the counter without a word. As I waited for it to cool, I overheard two women at a nearby table whispering. That's her, one of them said. The one who took her own dad to court, over a damn Porsche. They didn't bother whispering well. I left the coffee untouched. When I got home, I opened my laptop and began sorting everything into a new folder. Exhibit B, character smear. Screenshots, voicemails, call logs, each tagged, time-stamped, dated. Every family member who ghosted me. Every message that said things like, family over money, or, you're breaking mom's heart. I added them all. I wasn't just gathering proof of theft anymore. I was documenting erasure. They wanted me gone, forgotten. They should have remembered who kept the lights on while they booked their all-inclusive cruise last year. That night, a surprise message popped up on Instagram. From Grace, my cousin on Evelyn's side. We hadn't spoken in months. I think you're brave, she wrote. Everyone's afraid of Dorian. She followed it up with a voice memo she'd saved. Dorian had left it for her last night. You don't want to get caught in this mess. Stay neutral. Let Azra tire herself out. Blood over proof, right? I replayed it twice. The tone in his voice, casual, calculating, like he was managing a PR crisis. I added it to the folder. Labeled it, Father, Instruction to Obstruct. This wasn't just defense anymore. It was strategy. Grace messaged one last time. If you ever need someone in your corner, I'm here. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. I'll remember that. They wanted me erased. Fine. But I wasn't going quietly. If they were going to bury me, they better remember. I'm the one who built the ground they're standing on. They thought I'd vanish quietly. They didn't know I was just beginning. I found out from a coworker. That's the part that stung more than it should have. Not the headline, not the betrayal. Just the casual way it slid into conversation over microwaved leftovers. Hey, wasn't that your sister's wedding this weekend? He asked, scrolling his phone. They drove a Porsche into the reception tent. It was live on Facebook for a while. My breath left me before my reply did. I locked myself in the break room and pulled up the video. There it was. The car. Black paint, red calipers, exactly the build I'd saved and memorized for years. The caption on the live feed read, a symbol of love and support from our amazing parents. Cheers erupted as Brin posed beside the vehicle, waving the keys like she'd just won a sweepstakes. Then she took the mic and with a perfectly glossy smile said, I wouldn't be who I am without the sacrifices made by others. My name was never mentioned. The person who made the actual sacrifice, the one who ate ramen, sold off her weekends, and lived off $40 grocery budgets, wasn't even acknowledged. I shut the laptop so hard the sound made Roscoe bark. By that evening, the edited video of the reception made the rounds online. Smooth cuts, cinematic filters, drone footage panning the backyard. Our childhood home now transformed into a magazine spread. Except, I wasn't in a single frame. Every aunt and uncle seemed to comment with some variation of, so proud of you, Brin, and the Kesslers know how to celebrate. At the very end of the clip, they listed the donors for the grand surprise. Gifted by the Kessler family. Not Azra, not my daughter, just the family name like it was a corporate donation. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things. I drove to the dealership the next morning. The manager, Chris, mid-30s, corporate polite, pulled up my file, then hesitated. Yes. It shows your pre-order was canceled last week. Said you no longer intended to proceed? My voice dropped. I never called to cancel. He clicked around. It says the cancellation was confirmed by phone. I leaned forward. Can I hear the call? He shook his head. I'm sorry, that would require a subpoena. Of course it would. Back home, Brin was on the patio, sipping wine like it was just another ordinary Sunday. She looked up as I entered and grinned. Long day? I dropped my bag and crossed the room. You canceled my car. She sipped slowly. You didn't have the money. It's not like it was happening. I kept my voice calm. It was never yours to steal. Brin leaned back, tilted her head like I was overreacting. It's not stealing if it was never real to begin with. That sentence did something to me. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and set it on the counter. You're admitting you knew it was mine? She laughed, took another sip, didn't deny it. I saved the audio under a new folder. Exhibit C, Emotional Manipulation and Admission. Upstairs, I packed a go bag, just the essentials. Documents, flash drives, a change of clothes, nothing sentimental. I wasn't leaving yet, but I wanted to be ready. My voice in my head wasn't angry. It was steel. They erased me from the memory of our family. I'd make sure history didn't forget me again. I opened my laptop and emailed Victor. I'm ready, let's move forward. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about identity and theft. And silence turned into strategy. And just when I thought I had seen the worst, they made it public. I didn't bother knocking. I dropped the envelope on the kitchen counter, sealed, typed, emotionless. Inside, a letter formally informing Dorian and Evelyn that I would be filing a civil lawsuit by the end of the week. That morning had been calm in the house. Too calm. Brin had gone back to her fiancé's condo. Evelyn was watering plants, and Dorian was reading the sports section like nothing in the world required his attention. Until he opened the letter. He found me in the hallway. You really want to take this to court? He asked, holding the envelope like it was radioactive. I didn't blink. I'm not asking anymore. His voice dropped low and sharp. You go through with this. Don't bother coming back. I wasn't planning on it, I said. You made it clear I wasn't family the moment you signed my name on a lie. Evelyn stood frozen in the doorway, lips parted like she wanted to speak, but couldn't decide if she had permission. I watched her eyes water. She didn't say a word, and I didn't beg her to. That afternoon, I sat across from Victor again, my attorney, my anchor. You've done your homework, he said, sorting through the binder I handed him. This isn't a family dispute anymore. This is fraud. Inside the folder were printed screenshots of transactions, voice memos from Brin, video of the wedding, and 3 signatures, mine and 2 fakes. Victor reviewed everything with methodical silence. Then he looked up. Court date's set for Wednesday. They'll try to settle before then. Don't take it. I won't, I said. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, just in energy. Dorian and Evelyn sat together, Brin a seat away, fiddling with her phone. No one made eye contact. No one spoke to me. I sat alone across the aisle. Didn't need anyone next to me. Brin leaned over to me before the hearing started, voice low but sharp. Still showing up solo, huh? I didn't respond. She wasn't worth the oxygen. Victor stood first. The judge gave him a nod, and he began with a calm, deliberate outline. The bank records, the forged authorizations, the canceled pre-order at the dealership. Then he slid the forged document across the bench. This is the signature in question, he said. There was a murmur in the gallery. 2 churchwomen I recognized. Someone from Evelyn's book club. The judge looked to Dorian. Can the defense explain this? Dorian's voice was too quick. My wife handled most of the financials. I trusted her. I can't speak to what she may have signed. I turned my eyes to Evelyn, and for the first time in weeks, she looked back. I never signed anything, she said, voice shaking. I was told it was for refinancing. I didn't know she wasn't told. The room shifted. You could feel it. People who came in certain of what they thought they knew were now unsure. Then came the moment that would never be erased. Victor tapped his tablet, and the speakers in the courtroom crackled on. Brin's voice filled the air. It's not stealing if it was never real to begin with. Silence. You could hear the judge's pen hit the bench. I watched Brin's face drain of its usual confidence. She turned to Dorian. You said this wouldn't come back to me, she hissed. Outside the courtroom, the air was different. Tense. Reporters from a local blog had caught wind of the case. Some community freelance kid had posted a live tweet about a daughter suing her family over a Porsche and winning. Victor handed me a copy of the court's recess ruling. Financial fraud. Intentional misrepresentation. Penalties pending. They're going to want to settle now, he said, and they'll pay. I took the paper, nodded once, and walked out of the building alone. In the parking lot, I paused before getting into my car. I took a photo of the court notice and posted it to my private Instagram. Caption: Inheritance isn't just money. It's the legacy of how we treat each other. This is me breaking the cycle. Truth doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with a stamp and a judge's initials. But truth always has a cost. And mine was waiting at home, with a folded letter on the table. The house was quiet when I got home from court. Almost suspiciously so. No television murmuring from the living room. No dishes clinking from the kitchen. Just silence that felt strategic. Roscoe didn't even greet me at the door. He was likely in my room, the only place that still felt mine. The lights in the kitchen were off. A single envelope sat in the center of the table, like it had been placed there with surgical precision. My name was written on it in Evelyn's handwriting. I didn't move for a full minute. For the first time in this whole mess, I wasn't sure I wanted to open something. But curiosity always wins with me, especially when the silence is this loud. Inside the envelope was a folded note and a USB stick. The note was brief, just 5 words, each one shaky but deliberate. I couldn't speak then. Maybe you'll let me be heard now. I took it to my room and plugged the USB into my laptop. One file, a voice memo, recorded a little over 3 weeks ago. Evelyn's voice was softer than I remembered it, worn down, like gravel smoothed by years of water. Azra, your father convinced me to sign those forms. I didn't know what they were. I didn't ask. I was afraid, still am. I paused the audio. My heart was thudding, not with anger, but something heavier. Grief. She continued. You didn't deserve this. None of it. I watched you work and save and... I should have said something. I should have told you earlier. I'm sorry. I sat there in silence, laptop open, cursor blinking on the screen like it was holding its breath with me. I played it again. And again. I paused at every sentence, let each word crawl under my skin. My memory began filling in the blanks. The way she slipped envelopes into drawers when no one was looking. The way her eyes dropped every time Dorian mentioned money. The moment at dinner last month, when she looked at me like she was trying to speak across a canyon she helped build. I'd spent so long being angry at her silence, I didn't notice how much she was shaking while staying quiet. I forwarded the voice memo to Victor with one line. I don't know if this helps legally, but it matters to me. His response came 15 minutes later. It may not be admissible in court, but it proves one thing, intent, and that matters. The weight in my chest didn't lift, but it shifted, became something I could carry. That evening, someone knocked at the door. It was Grace. Again. She was holding a leather-bound journal, edges frayed, elastic stretched. She handed it to me like it was radioactive. Your mom gave this to me, she said. Said to give it to you if anything ever happened. She didn't come inside. She didn't need to. That was the kindest part. Back upstairs, I opened it slowly. Inside were dated entries, short to the point, but laced with sadness. Notes about Brin manipulating her into choosing sides. Lists of financial conversations she'd been pushed out of. Lines like, he moved the money again. I didn't ask where it came from. Evelyn had used the only weapon she had left, memory. She couldn't protect me with her voice. so she did it with her record. I thought they had taken everything from me, but she left me exactly what I needed to finish this. The email came in just after sunrise. It was short, direct, and carried the kind of weight that made coffee unnecessary. Subject line, Court Action Update. Kessler v. Kessler. I opened it with steady hands and scanned the body of text. Brin's assets had been frozen. The Porsche title was no longer in her name, pending investigation. The vehicle itself was now officially flagged. The law hadn't just caught up, it had parked itself in their driveway and asked for ID. 10 minutes later, I opened Instagram. Brin had already posted a tearful story. Makeup slightly smudged, filtered lighting still on point. When your own blood turns cold, this isn't justice, it's betrayal. I didn't reply. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just watched. Quiet. Because the thing about justice, it doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it's just a quiet reshuffling of paperwork that changes everything. Over the next few days, her comment sections started shifting. At first, it was all the usual affirmations. You deserve the world. Ignore the haters. But then came the cracks. Wait, wasn't that car her sister's dream build? Isn't her dad under investigation for financial misconduct? One commenter posted a screenshot from a flyer. Financial Integrity Seminar. Guest speaker, Dorian Kessler. Underneath, irony is wild. People started DMing me. Old classmates, neighbors, even an old college professor I hadn't spoken to since freshman year. I always knew you were the real deal. I'm sorry for not speaking up sooner. We all saw it, but we didn't say anything. Their support didn't fix anything, but it made the silence less lonely. On Wednesday, I passed the family house during my walk. There was a moving truck in the driveway, furniture wrapped in blankets, boxes labeled Brin Kitchen, Office, Decor. Grace met me on the corner. They're selling, she said softly. Her fiancé backed out, said he needed space from the headlines. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just kept walking, court folder in hand, like a shield I'd finally earned. Later, in a quiet corner of a local cafe, I sat with my laptop. The screen displayed a new landing page. Money Doesn't Lie. A personal finance course for women starting over. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Built out of receipts and betrayal and resolve. I thought of Dorian's old mantra, money comes and goes, but reputation is forever. Then I whispered, not to anyone, just into the air around me. Then he shouldn't have bet my future on a lie. That night, I got a voicemail from him. I recognized the number, but let it go to inbox. You won, he said. We're ruined, but I hope you're proud of what you did. I didn't delete it, but I didn't respond either. He still didn't get it. He thought winning meant burning the whole family to the ground. He still believed power only existed when someone else was kneeling. He didn't understand that all I ever wanted was to stop pretending I owed him my life. That night, I left a single envelope on the kitchen counter, then walked out the door for good. The house was a shell now, the kind of quiet that doesn't comfort. It echoes. I stepped through the hallway slowly, as if sound might crack the floor beneath me. All the family photos had been rearranged. Every single one that had included me was gone. I wasn't surprised. They didn't just want me out. They wanted to erase the part where I'd ever been in. On the kitchen counter, I placed a single manila envelope. Inside it, a printed copy of the court ruling, Evelyn's recorded confession, and a brief handwritten note. Just 9 words. This ends here, and not in hate. No signature. I didn't leave a forwarding address. Walking through that house one last time felt surreal, like visiting a place that used to mean something before it had been turned into a stage. Every corner used to hold memory. Now it just held dust and denial. I stepped outside, squinting against the late morning sun. Grace's car slowed as she passed by. She didn't honk, didn't wave out the window. She just nodded from behind the glass, and I nodded back. From the porch, Brin sat slouched in one of the chairs, tear-streaked and pale. She didn't speak, neither did I. We just looked at each other across a stretch of air packed with everything we'd never say. Then I turned and walked down the driveway, each step quieter than the last. That night, I stood in my new apartment, a 2-bedroom on the east side of town. Older building, creaky floors, paper-thin walls, but it was mine. There were no echoing voices, no shifting alliances, no passive-aggressive post-its on the fridge. Just me. And June. I'd adopted her 2 days earlier, a mutt with kind eyes and anxious shoulders, like she'd spent her whole life waiting to be safe. We understood each other instantly. My days were simple now, teaching basic finance workshops for single moms and women recovering from financial abuse. A few virtual clients, some writing on the side, modest, quiet. But the quiet didn't ache anymore. Turns out, peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from truth, without explanation. And I didn't explain anymore. One morning, I opened my inbox and found an email from Dorian. The subject line read, "No more fights." I almost didn't open it, but I did. "I still don't think I'm the villain in this, but I know now that you were never weak. You always had more strength than I gave you credit for. I see it now. I hope you'll heal someday." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I clicked archive and let it vanish into the invisible void. Healing doesn't mean going back. It means moving forward without dragging their voices with you. And when I finally drove my new car off the lot, I wasn't escaping. I was arriving. I walked into the Porsche dealership in Phoenix with a check that weighed more than the car ever could. A cashier's check, earned through settlements, scraped savings, and a quiet, brutal kind of justice. The showroom floor sparkled like a scene from a dream I used to have when the world still felt steady beneath me. The salesperson greeted me with a polished smile, but it faltered just slightly when I slid the check across the counter. "Most people finance these," he said, clearly not expecting full payment. "Most people weren't robbed by their family to get here," I replied, calm but pointed. He didn't ask any more questions. When I sat behind the wheel, the first thing I did was close my eyes. I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat, fingers curled around the leather, breathing in the moment that was supposed to come 3 years earlier. Then I turned the key. The engine roared, throaty, alive, unapologetic. I pulled out of the dealership, windows down, music off. No fanfare, no passengers, just wind and memory. I drove through my old neighborhood. I wasn't there to flaunt anything. I needed to see it one last time before I buried it. The street where I learned to ride a bike. The tree I used to climb to hide from Brin's tantrums. The mailbox where I used to drop birthday cards into the world, hoping someone would remember to send one back. Nothing looked different. Except me. A week later, the final court documents arrived. Brin had been fined, permanently barred from opening financial accounts in anyone else's name. The fraud flag would follow her for years. Dorian's certification was stripped. He would never manage another client's money again. His name no longer stood for trust. It was just another cautionary tale in a small-town paper. Evelyn's name, curiously, had begun to recover. Someone from her church messaged me. She should have said more, but thank you for doing what she couldn't. I didn't respond, but I kept the message. It reminded me that even silence, when broken, can echo through the right places. In Phoenix, I registered a new LLC, financial consulting for women trying to rebuild after betrayal. I started a blog. Nothing flashy, just stories and tools and straight talk. The first post was titled, "Things I Wish I Knew Before Trusting My Family with My Money." It got shared more than I expected. I spoke at a women's shelter a month later. No PowerPoint. Just me in a folding chair saying, "The past isn't a chain, it's a lesson, and I've learned." They nodded. Some cried. One woman asked for my business card. That was enough. Then came the letter. Handwritten, postmarked Scottsdale. I knew who it was from before I opened it. "I still think what we did was out of necessity," Dorian wrote. but I now know you were never weak. There was no apology, just recognition. It came too late. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I folded the letter carefully, placed it in an envelope, wrote "closed" across the front, and burned it in my sink. The flame danced, hissed once, then was gone. Not all scars need to be covered. Some remind you where never to return. When I finally parked that Porsche in my own driveway, I didn't hear applause. But for once, I didn't need it. What I've learned from this journey is simple, but it took me years to fully understand. Just because someone shares your blood doesn't mean they're entitled to your sacrifices. Family should never be a weapon used to silence you, nor a shield used to justify betrayal. If you've ever been told to let it go, keep the peace, or not make things worse, I want you to hear this. Peace that costs your dignity is not peace. It's quiet oppression. I spent so long trying to earn love through loyalty that I forgot I was already enough without their approval. Now I choose truth over tradition, boundaries over appearances, and most importantly, I choose myself, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for everything I've survived. Maybe you've lived through something like this, or maybe you're still in it. If this story touched something in you, please leave a comment with a 1, or tell me where you're watching from. If this story didn't connect, I'd love to hear why, and what stories do move you. This is a space for dialogue, not just monologue. And if you want more stories that dig deep into pain, strength, family, and finding your voice, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Don't just watch, be part of something real. End of Fan QOI.